Hey everybody, James here, and today we are going to be working on a dueling tree without welding. Okay, I got this do-it-yourself kit, which many of you have probably seen, and a lot of people don't know how to weld. So it kind of deters you from making your own because, well, you just either maybe you don't have the skills to weld, or you just don't, have the tools or something like that. So any reason for why you may not be able to weld your own, we are going to figure out a way that you can build one with just normal tools and not need any special skills. So as you see here, I got this do-it-yourself kit. I opened this up already. So we got our paddles here. There's 6 of them. They're quite heavy. This is AR 500 steel. They make a whole bunch of different kinds, but the kind that I got are capable of stopping rifle rounds. And then in it, other than that, they just give you these tubes. So the tubes go in, and then your paddle goes ding, 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 ding. Hopefully, right? So how am I going to do this, you ask? So the way that I kind of figured it out was I'm going to take some 2x4 pieces that I have, like this. Alright, sorry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 2x4 here, and I'm going to cut it down here. And so this tube, I measured it, is 1 inch across, basically exactly 1 inch. So what I have here is a 1 inch drill bit. The way I'm going to do it is I'm going to cut my section there, and then in theory I'm going to drill my 1 inch hole down there. But the thing is that I don't want to drill it all the way through because this will fall right out the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill down the length, and then I'm going to take a 3/4 inch because I still got to be able to get the paddle through. So I'm going to take a 3/4 inch and cut it the rest of the way, so that way the tube still sits and there's enough room for the paddle to go down, and it should be able to rotate pretty nicely. Okay, so I got one in the bag here. As I said, I did my 1 inch bit and then finished it off with a 3/4, so that way this slides down, doesn't fall out, and it allows. So what I see is that the whole tube spins with it, which honestly might not be a big deal, but as you see, it does swing. I had to shave down a little bit of the side of the 2x4 because the paddle was hitting. So the idea here is that now what I'm going to do is take another 2x4 like this, and I may need to shave this down because, well, actually I don't think it's going to matter if the paddle stops there, as long as it goes from one side to the other. So yes, we may be good there. So, and then I'm just going to put in a couple screws, probably 4, just because there is some weight here, so I don't want it to swing around and rip them all out. So I'm probably going to put 4 screws in there, and then have another one, and another one, another one, another one, all the way down. And then from there, so I know what some of you might already be thinking, James, you're using a 2x4, aren't bullets going to come and blast this thing apart? And over time, yep, definitely will. So what I'm going to do to save some of that is I'm thinking about putting, I have a couple posts here, so I'm thinking about maybe putting 2 of these in front, and then I'll just put the 2x4 in the back, and that'll at least protect it a little bit. Yeah. So again, this is not something that we're building that is going to withstand the test of time here. But as you can see, it is just 2x4s. So even if your post does get chewed up, all you need to do is unscrew the backs, put in a fresh piece, you know. That's it. So if we can't weld it, we're going to do the best that we can with what the tools that we have, because we still want to enjoy the dueling tree. Alright, so now I'm going to make 5 more of these. Got our blocks drilled out, just like the other. Again, thinking I'm probably going to have to shave down a little bit on the side here. Not a big deal. Let me just test that out real quick. That's nice. Yep. It's good on that side, just makes it. So just gotta shave off a little bit. Not a big deal. Let me do that right quick. Alright, so now that we got all the blocks done, next thing to do is, so I got my 2x4 out here, and the next thing to do is the spacing in between, because you want to be able to make sure that your paddles aren't touching and that you have enough room here. So I looked this up online to see what other people are doing with their do-it-yourselfers, and what everyone basically said is to do it about 5.5 inches in between each tube. So I'm doing it 5.5 inches in between each block, because obviously there's a little bit of room on the bottom of the tube to the block here, so there's that little bit of space right there. So we're not going to incorporate that. We're just going to do from block to block. Okay. And then from there, I'm going to drill it in, and then I'm going to work on the base. That's another thing that I've given some thought into. I got a couple different designs in my mind, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Alright, so let's get the blocks in. Alright, so we got our blocks drilled in, and looks pretty good. So I did go ahead though and pre-drill, just because so that'll focus, just because I did notice as soon as I started sinking the first screw, which I used 3" by the way, so it basically goes through everything. And the reason why I did is because as soon as I started to sink the first one in, I heard cracking. So I knew that if I tried to continue doing this, I mean, you can see it's pretty thin there, so there's not a lot of room. So I would definitely recommend pre-drilling, and I guess you don't have to use 3". That's what I had lying around. So again, that is what this video is about. Making a dueling tree, no welding, using stuff that you have lying around. And next, what I'm going to do is try to judge the length that I want to have it, and then cut the 2x4. And actually, before I even mess around with the base, I kind of want to just stand this thing up and see if it'll hold them and what it'll look like, you know. So let me put the camera down and get this stood up and see what it looks like. All right, catch you in a sec. Okay, so this is what we have so far. I cut it to 6 foot. So it's looking pretty good. And I tested the paddles, so it'll be leaning forward and comes over. So that's the idea. Now I'll make the base for it, paint it up, test it out, and of course put my pole on the front of it so it doesn't get too beat up. Oh, and another thing I'm thinking about doing is, because the tube spins, what I'm thinking about doing is putting a grub screw in there. So just put a screw in there so it puts a little tension on it. So we are looking good now. Got the base, paddles. So the base that I went with, the base model that I went with, you see here, so it's got to tilt forward, as you can see here. One reason for that is so that way the bullets reflect down and, you know, don't come back at you. Another reason is because it helps when the paddle gets like a little past the halfway point, it'll go to the other side a little easier. So what I did here is slanted the 2x4s forward a little bit and screwed them in like that. Same thing with the support braces that I did here, because we obviously have some weight coming forward and I didn't want that. I wanted to take a little bit of the weight off the back here, so hopefully they'll last a little bit longer. And I also need to put the support beam in front of it to protect my tubes here. Last thing I want is a bullet to come right through here and blow out the back. So that's what that post will do. And also I did put in grub screws, so right here, that way the tube, because like I said before, the tube was spinning, so that way no spinning, doesn't move, and that'll allow these to go a little bit better. Although it does look like I could already see that moving a little bit. I may need to tighten this one a little bit. But yeah, so that's pretty much the general idea. So what I'm going to do now is give these a nice coat of paint, and we'll see what it looks like that. And it looks a little bit better now. So one thing that I'm sure people are going to point out is the colors. So I originally got orange and fluorescent green for the paddles, but there's a problem with the green can. The nozzle broke, so I had to use other paints that I had. So it's just temporary, and I'll repaint it. But let's see if she works. Okay, so I'd say that was pretty successful. And I hope seeing this, a lot of you go out and pick yourselves up some do-it-yourself kits. And if you don't know how to weld, that's okay, because now you can just use 2x4s and whatever else you have lying around. So until next time, be safe and catch you later.